Hey everybody, it's Justin from Bitnerbuilt, and this is the xTool F1 Ultra, the world's first diode and fiber laser combination. So my video is going to be a little bit different than some of the other YouTube reviewers out there. I've seen some previews of some other stuff. They're making beautiful projects, so make sure you watch everybody's reviews on this machine to get a good, well-rounded overview of what it can do. I have a little bit of a time constraint. I have this machine for a week before I have to go to California. My one son is trying out for the national wushu kung fu team. That's the top 6 people in the country. That's who they pick to go represent us internationally and, Olympic stuff like that. So it's a big deal for my family. I have to go. But I will use my time wisely. So rather than making, some big, beautiful projects, I'm all about giving you as much data as I can. I'm going to run through as many projects as possible. I set up some questionnaires on the Facebook xTool groups, and I asked people, what materials do you want to see if this machine can do? What questions do you have? What tests do you want me to run? So that's what I'm doing. I literally let the people decide what this video is going to be about. So I'm running as many tests as I can. I'm trying to see how deep I can engrave, test out the embossing features, what can we cut. I'm going to highly focus a lot on the fiber laser aspect of this because the 20-watt diode, is present in many other machines. So we already know what a 20-watt diode can do. We want to see what this fiber in here can do. And yes, it is a real fiber laser, and we'll go into that later too. I really hope that you'll get a good amount of info to educate you on your purchasing decisions. You don't want just some random YouTube guy telling you this is the best machine in the world, to go buy it. You want to see how this machine can fit into your workflow. Will this machine increase your productivity? All these things are what matter to determine if purchasing this machine is worth it to you. So that's what I hope I'm going to be able to give you the information on to make an educated buying decision. So let's get to the tests today on Bitnerbuilt. Let's run through a whole bunch of features and let me answer some questions about the machine before we get started on the testing. So Fiber Laser 101, you see this thing hanging down here? Fiber lasers use a very large lens, and it has a lens cover. It's important that you use the lens cover to protect your investment. It's a big piece of glass up there that you don't want to get scratched. But if you run this machine with that cover on, you run the risk of cracking your lens. I have actually done it with a different machine. So make sure that you glue tape something to here so that you see that the lens cap is on so you don't accidentally run the machine with it on. Otherwise, it's very difficult to see that it's there. With the machine, it can run with the RA2 Pro rotary, so if you own this from the P2 or the S1, you can definitely use it on here. It can use the new button that they have out, though I don't know why you would use this when you already have a big old button on a cable right here. It does have the pedal switch though, and the pedal switch does work with this machine. The unit is fully enclosed for your safety and the safety of others. That is excellent. This machine can run in the open state, which makes it a class 4 laser. That means that when you are running it in the open state, you must wear goggles. And anybody else in the room in the immediate vicinity must wear goggles. Now, there are 2 lasers in here. They run at 2 different wavelengths. For me, neither one of these goggles that I have covers both. So when I run the fiber, I have to wear this. When I run the diode, I have to wear this. There might be goggles out there that cover both. Make sure that it has printed directly on the goggles what it covers. That way you know that you are safe. You do not want to use goggles that do not have things that are inscribed on there, because you might not be wearing goggles that are safe enough and you'd be damaging your vision when you think you're protecting it. If you're somebody who needs to use an air purifier either at a public event or you just are not capable of venting outside, you cannot use the purifier from the original F1. I really want to call it the Mini now because it's so small, but the F1. You can use the one from the P2 or the S1. It's a much larger version. This is a much larger machine than what goes with this one. For the people who need to run this off of battery power, I wanted to show you power consumption on here. So when it is idle, it is running at about 25 watts. When I run a very low powered job, it jumps up to somewhere around 75 watts. And then the power brick itself maxes out at 250 watts. This laser is a real fiber laser. It uses what is called a Q-switched fiber module inside. It is highly portable. As you can see, it's all in this box contained. It weighs a total of 34.5 pounds, or just a little bit under 15 kilograms. The machine itself, I feel comfortable in saying that you can safely transport this. If you think about a typical fiber laser, it has some sort of box either attached or detached, and then a glass fiber optic cable that goes to the lens. If you've owned one of these, all of them have stickers all over it saying the instructions. This cable is super fragile. Do not bend it, do not twist it, you will break it. And so putting that in my truck, going to an event, would be a bad idea. This machine, being that it is compact, all in one, this can easily be transported. I technically could carry two if somebody handed me one, but obviously not a good idea, but I just wanted to show that. This does seem like, from a portability standpoint, if you're somebody who works out at a craft fair or some sort of in-person event, that this is a great option. Precision in your laser engravers is the most important characteristic. If you don't have precision, then when you place in a piece of material and it engraves it off center, you wasted your time, your money, your material. So what I do is I use these 2mm matchsticks and I place them all over the bed. That way we can see if, of course it's going to engrave good right in the middle, but will it engrave all the way up in the top corner correctly as well? And my tests say yes, absolutely. And the best part about it is it's only a one camera system. The P2 has a good camera system, but it's two. And so it adds a little bit of time when you're laying out things because you have to move that camera around to get an accurate, up close, precise photo of what you're doing. Here we have one camera shooting the entire workbed, and it is precise no matter where we lay out on this workbed. This is obviously super needed if that conveyor belt feature is to work, because if we were engraving wrong in a certain area, that would obviously throw off all those batch processes. So I can definitely say this camera is fully accurate. Now, me personally, I like XCS. I've been using Lightburn for years on all my other machines that never had its own native software, but I am one of those people that appreciates that you have native software with your machine. It's going to be the most accurate, up-to-date, and it's going to work flawlessly because they develop the two things together as opposed to using a third-party thing. But I do understand many people do prefer Lightburn, and so I wanted to make sure you knew that. This machine has offline capabilities, which means you don't have to have it connected to a computer to run a job. This is really good if you batch process the same sort of thing all the time and you have a jig for it. So you could put in your pencil engraving jig, just scroll down, select your file, and engrave upon it without actually having to use a laptop in any of the software or anything. Now, the ways to do this. One, inside XCS, you can go to Settings and then export your file as a .xf to a thumb drive. The thumb drive inserts to the side of the machine right here, and then it becomes accessible on the touch screen via the third button at the bottom that looks like a thumb drive. You can then just click your file and you're good. The other way is that this machine also has its own storage on device. So inside the XCS software, you can run a job and then click Backup File to Device that is located at the bottom right. This will then send it to the machine, and it's available from the folder icon on the side of the F1 Ultra's touchscreen. I measured all depths using a digital depth gauge on a steel plate surface.
Taking a look at these small letters zoomed in, I can definitely tell that the second to last one is an A legibly visually, as well as through the camera right here. So measuring those with my calipers, okay. Looks like we're 0.49 millimeters in size right there. These are really, really small. So I am very happy with how small we can get an engraving that's actually somewhat legible there.
Let's talk about embossing. Embossing is going to get really deep engravings into materials. And so on the coins, I start with one layer of embossing. And so it's still a smooth surface. There's really nothing to it. Then we go to 15 layers. And I have to say, there is some pretty good drop in there. It might not seem like it, but you can definitely see the big contrast on there. I'm not sure what the changing color is right here right now, but brass does patina, of course. Then we move on to a 64 layer drop, and this is on a zinc coin. And we can see definitely some height on there, but it's still not anything crazy. But when I run my fingernail on it, it definitely catches pretty heavy there. And then we move on to the two coins that are 256 layers deep. And there is a huge difference between these two. So first off, you can tell this is brass and it's brass on the front. This one went black. This was a junky coin that they electroplated and passed off as solid brass. So it still did the job, but obviously that's why it's black. So watch where you buy things from. Now this one, you really have no depth. And again, this is 256 layers. But on this lion, you have a huge amount of depth in there. I mean, this is really deep into this coin. It's because of the files that I used. When you're going to do a deep embossing like this, you have to use a height layer map. And the lion is a really nicely prepared file from xTool. So you see it in its marking materials. I was able to snag that. I've used it a couple times. This dragon was one that I found online for free, and I just threw it in there. And yeah, didn't come out that great. So there is a lot to do with the file preparation with how these are going to turn out. Lastly, I took that lion file again, and I did this onto slate, and look at the depth that carved out of that slate coaster. Additionally, this isn't even 256 layers. This is 120 layers. So I, kind of halved it. It actually did 5 millimeters in depth in there. And the hilarious thing is this is like 5.3 millimeters in depth. So it almost went all the way through on this one. I almost feel like slate is going to be one of those really cool new materials that people are going to make some really cool stuff out of. It was much faster. The product that came out of it was really cool. You could totally fill this in with some clear resin and you'd be able to see this, and it would actually get rid of like the kind of white tinge on there. There's a lot that we could do here. So in essence, what I wanted to point out, you can make a challenge coin in 30 seconds right here. The design is apparent and prevalent. It just doesn't have depth. This would be pretty much a marking. At 15 to 64, we're still in very speedy territory right here, and these do look good. I would definitely say the 64 one looks pretty good. All of the background there has a nice textured feel to it when I'm moving my finger around on it. So this right here is pretty nice, and that was around 30 minutes to engrave this one. When you get over to these hardcore 256 ones, you're looking at around 4 to 5 hours on this machine with these. But it is pretty impressive. I wish this was all brass on this one. I don't have enough time to run another 5-hour engrave on this one and still get other tests done, so I had to kind of move on. But pretty impressive. This machine can do it. Obviously, if you have a much higher powered fiber laser, you would be able to do this much faster. So the question is this what your business is? Because this is a very specific use case. If it is, maybe this isn't the machine for you. But if this is just an every once in a while cool thing you crank out, then this machine is fine.
So as I said earlier in the video, I rarely ever do tumblers. It's not really my thing. So if we're going to do tumblers, let's bring on a professional. And so here's my friend Mike Smerka. Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're known for and whatnot.
My name is Mike Smerka. I own Diode Designs LLC. I'm sort of known in the xTool community for doing tumblers. I teach people how to do tumblers pretty much every day. I kind of started with the P2 more recently, and a lot of people have learned, so I got a lot of following in that sense. And so when he asked me to do video on the F1 Ultra with him for tumblers, absolutely I had to try it. Plus, getting to see that F1 Ultra work was kind of cool too.
Awesome. So Mike and I have been playing off camera for a couple hours, running through a whole bunch of different tests. I'll be putting that up in the video right now. You'll see that kind of playing as we go. But so Mike, I was really interested, you teach a Tumbler course online. So you've helped hundreds of people learn how to successfully do tumblers. So you definitely know what you're talking about on this. What was the thing that you were looking to see on the F1 Ultra that would make this a machine that you were interested in for that use case?
So for me, first of all, I do a lot of events and things like that. So I wanted portability in a machine where I could transport it around. Because as you may have seen in the P2 Facebook group, I've towed around my P2 to events, and it is no easy task. Usually me and my dad will have to carry the thing in, and it's a big machine. It's heavy. So I was looking for portability, but also I needed power. Where my F1, the regular one that I had prior, it could do things, but I just needed more power. I needed to be able to do tumblers and mark tumblers on one side or the other with it. And the capability needed to be there, and it needed to be there fast. So I'm looking for speed and the ability to do the majority of my tumblers in a quick amount of time was key for me.
Okay, so talking about speed, we were able to achieve 400 MMS with this. What is the usual speed that you're able to do with the P2s?
So with the P2s, we're kind of capped out at 250 millimeters a second. So when I was able to see this with my own eyes, engrave that tumbler at 400 millimeters a second, and the results were good. And the results were very clean. They wiped off real easy. I was really impressed. That was a huge selling point for me.
And so we were able to do that on some of the tumblers, like this black powder coated one. We were running this under 50% to remove, the outer coating right here to do any sort of engravings that we want. So being able to run it fast and low, I think is really something that came across pretty good. What about, size constraints? What were you hoping for with this machine?
So with this machine, just like everybody else, Stanley tumblers are the hottest topic right now. They're the bigger sellers. So I was hoping to be able to do a tumbler like this guy as a full wrap. Now, we weren't able to achieve that, but we were able to get really close. That being said, if you were doing like your Yetis, your smaller Stanleys, your Rambler tumblers, ice flows, anything of that nature, you're going to be able to do a full wrap on that top to bottom, no problem. The Stanley just came up just a touch short. When we did it there, it came up what was like a quarter-inch short.
So we were able to get 218 millimeters from top to where we stopped right here. Now, this one doesn't have a rim at the top, but usually the Stanley has a 3/4 of an inch rim up the top, which you wouldn't be engraving anyway. That's silver right there. So we have an inch gap down at the bottom. So when you account for that, we're only a 1/4 of an inch from the bottom. It would be better if we had that 1/4 of an inch. But you definitely, I think, can accommodate for that with your designs.
It would absolutely. And like I do my own designs and I do a lot of design work for people. So it's incorporating that little 1/4 inch, maybe not just putting a dead stop at the bottom. You can kind of get past that, especially because you got the portability and you got the speed and all that. Like it's a small concession. If you could just leave that little bit, you can definitely work around it.
So saying portability too, obviously you have lugged your P2s to events, but you know, if you see in your background right now, you have a traditional fiber laser right there. Have you ever taken that out to an event before?
Absolutely not. So as far as like fiber goes, fibers are known for marking metal. At events, a lot of the things I like, events I go to, I'm a very avid outdoorsman. We typically like things that are metal. So marking it metal at an event would be awesome. I would not take that thing anywhere because they're fragile. You have a fiber optic cable that goes from that big box to there. The gantry can be off. I mean, those are not built for travel. I would never dream of that. But that F1 Ultra, that'll be coming with me.
Yeah. The fact that it's all contained in this box means that, you know, I can actually carry two of these. If I had to and somebody handed me one, I could probably carry both at the same time, but it's all enclosed. So you don't have the risk of damaging the fiber optic cable, things like that. So that's pretty good. You know, we don't need to bend tabs if we're doing tumblers with handles on this one because we have a good height on this one. So that's a plus, right?
That's a huge plus. I mean, bending the tabs, I can't tell you how many times before I didn't have to bend tabs anymore. You'd go to bend that tab and you'd hear that pop pop of that weld and realize you ruined the tumbler.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the ability to just do diode stuff too, because it's a 2-in-1 laser. The ability that I could do wood and other things like that with that diode portion of it, that's huge to have one machine that can do both.
You know, I just thought of a question that, you know, just popped into my mind. A lot of commenters on the xTool Facebook groups, a lot of people have commented that, you know, they wanted to see a 50 watt or higher. In the truth of that is that that only applies to certain projects. So is the 20 watt in here more than enough for what you need? And how does that compare to your 50 watt back there? Are you able to do tumblers with that 50 watt?
So yeah, I'm able to do that, the tumblers with that, but I'm not really gaining any speed. The only thing, I mean, there's certain occasions and certain things that, yes, having that extra power, like you said, would be great. If you were trying to go like take a ton of material off quick, obviously more power is going to get you more material off. But everything that we've tested so far with the coins and what you were showing me with slate and everything else and the tumblers, I mean, it removes that. It was removing the powder coat on the tumblers with 20 power. So 20% power on a 20 watt was plenty. So, I mean, for the majority of people, unless you're doing that one specific thing where you're trying to cut out 1/4-inch steel pieces, you're not gonna really need it. Especially from what we've seen. I mean, that slate picture was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I was really surprised right here. I was really surprised at how much depth I was able to take out on that in such a short amount of time too. Um, Obviously having a more powerful fiber in this particular instance would enable me to have completed this faster, but it was still in a pretty reasonable amount of time. So now that was just something that comes to mind a lot. Like I didn't know if specifically in the tumbler realm, if this was a more powerful laser, if there was going to be that big of a distance. And I think you're right on the money as far as it took it off with 20%. So even if you had a more powerful laser, you'd be running it at even less power to do the same thing.
Speed is what was key there. I mean, that 400 millimeters a second was the fastest of the ones that I've used so far, as far as like running tumblers, because anything faster, the rotary is not going to be able to keep up, and you're gonna slip there too. So, I mean, all intents and purposes, I mean, I think it was plenty of power. I'm impressed.
Okay, awesome. Well, Mike, thank you so much for giving me your thoughts and everything on this. Where can people find you out on the internet and socials and stuff?
So like my Facebook is facebook.com/Diode Designs LLC. That's also my website, diodedesignsllc.com. And I'm Mike Smerka on Facebook. So feel free to send me a message. I'm here to help. I try to help
And that's
people.
also, your website's also where people can learn where to take your course, where you actually do a really intensive course helping people on how to do tumblers and whatnot. That's how I found Mike, is he's very active in the xTool Facebook groups, and everybody in those groups recommends Mike's course. So if you're interested in tumbler stuff, make sure you check Mike's course out. Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate all your commentary and your insight on all this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
For our tumbler tests, we started off with this one, and you can see that we ran all sorts of tests on here. This powder-coated tumbler came out at a power of 20, speed 400, one pass, 300 lines per centimeter, which is high. Usually Mike runs on his P2 at 125. And so this one came out at 41 minutes, 29 seconds to do what would typically be up at a top over here. We then ran it on a Stanley, dupe, and we came in on this one. This is a gloss coat, so we ran it at 40 power, 400 speed, 300 lines per centimeter, again too high, and this came out at an hour and 7 minutes. It is very clean. I would change the power settings a little bit because it came out pretty dark, but Mike was also happy with the test because it showed that he could get those blacks if he wanted to. So overall, not a fail quite at all. Lastly, we wanted to speed it up a lot more. So I thought the powder coating on these two were the same. They are not. So we needed to run this one at more power than we did. We ran it at 25, 400 speed, only 125 lines per centimeter. So it did give us a perfect clean engraving all the way around. If I had upped the power, we would have gotten all the way through to the shiny metal behind. This one only took 15 minutes and 57 seconds. So the speed on that is excellent. So just a little bit more power and we would have had a perfect result on this one in a very short amount of time. I wanted to compare the Galvo in the F1 Ultra to the Gantry-based S1. What I did here was run a light burn on this piece of wood, and then I'm going to run the exact same file in the S1. Based on the settings of the S1, I can only max it out at 600 MMS, so I chose the right power level to pretty much get the exact same result we have inside the Ultra. In the end, the Ultra was 4 times as fast. So while the S1 is a great machine and it has a very large bed, if I'm running a project that's small enough to fit in the Ultra, I would pick that one every time due to the speed. The other thing is I don't have the conveyor belt yet. I'm sorry. I know you're upset. I want to play with it. I'm very excited for the conveyor. It either got delayed in manufacturing or shipping. It is in the United States, and they have shipped me one. I have my FedEx tracking number, so it's coming, but I won't have it before I'm putting out this video right now, honestly. So I apologize. I will make a whole extra dedicated video as soon as I get back just to the conveyor belt. But I do have some answers to some things that you have questions on. And of course, xTool will be having their live stream event that they put out before this video. I'm sure they will be demoing it in that, so I refer over to that video. But some questions answered. You can only engrave on the conveyor. You cannot cut on it. So items must only be engraved upon. You can damage the conveyor, I'm guessing. Also, when the conveyor belt is running, it will advance forward a certain distance and check to see if it sees the material there. If it doesn't, it will advance forward again up to 5 times. If it does not detect any material during those 5 times, it will then cut off the sequence, assuming that you're out of materials on the conveyor belt. So my final thoughts on this machine. Highly portable, good range of materials, fast, being that it's a Galvo, precision, very, very important there with a 1 camera shot to give you a precise view of your work area. That is hard-pressed to be said for most lasers out there. Honestly, I do feel that for what this is, it is correctly priced. There's lots of conflicting people with stuff out on there on the internet, but in reality, there is a lot in this package compared to your traditional just fiber laser over here, especially the fact that it has a 20-watt diode in it as well. That might not be something that you use, but there's a lot of people out there that are very excited that both are included in on this machine, especially if you're somebody who goes to shows and stuff. From a speed perspective, you know, take Mike Smerka, for example. He has an order for 600 tumblers this week. And so on his P2s, when he engraves, obviously everything is different, but the example sunset one that we used on the tumblers here would take 45 minutes on his P2s, but yet we were able to do it in 15 minutes on the Ultra. So that to him is a no-brainer. He's ordering at least one. He thinks he might order two, because that will greatly increase the productivity for the things that he does. So whatever you do, you need to take a look at the tests here and be able to decide from that. But I'm sure unless you're engraving really deep embossed coins all the time, this machine is going to really fit the bill for most people. But of course, you still can do that too occasionally when you want to. I hope you'll like and subscribe if you got a good enough information. That is how my channel grows, so that helps me a lot. And of course, I have my affiliate links down below. You know, I bought a whole bunch of materials out of pocket for this video, so those little commissions I get when people use my links to purchase xTool products really helps me out a lot, so I do appreciate that. I hope you'll stay safe in the shop, and I will see you in the next video as soon as I get back, where I review the conveyor belt. See you next time.